Hey everybody, I'm the Professor, aka Logic with Paradox GRP, here with another message. This past week we had an amazing Bible study headed up by Pastor Gregory Hind of Impact Christian Ministries. We had an opportunity to talk through the book of Jonah. So we started at Jonah 1 and right from the beginning. We'll do a quick recap for those. I know everyone has heard of the story of Jonah and the whale. You're all familiar with it, but quick recap for those that may not be familiar, or maybe it's been a little bit of time since you've read through the book of Jonah. So as you all know, God asked Jonah to go to Nineveh. And instead of going to Nineveh, and the reason why God asked Jonah to go to Nineveh is because he wanted to expose them for their wickedness. And Jonah decided he didn't want to go to Nineveh. So instead, he decided to go to Tarshish. So he went down to Joppa and said, you know what? Let me find a boat and I'm going to go to Tarshish. So he hops on the boat, and in the middle of being on this boat, all of a sudden this raging storm comes. And now it says in the word that God sent the storm. So that's important. Jonah's on the boat, all of these people are on the boat, and this huge storm comes. And so they all look at each other and they say, you know what? Someone must have done something. You know what? Let's all pray to our God. Everybody, you pray to your God, you pray to your God, you pray to your God. Let's all pray to our God and try to calm this storm. So they all pray to their God. And meanwhile, Jonah goes down and goes to sleep. And so they all look like, wait, where's the one guy? Where did he go? So the captain goes down to go get Jonah. He says, hey, you, everybody else is praying to their God. You pray to your God. Talk to your God. See if maybe your God can help us calm this storm. And so then he began to tell them, and they asked him, who are you? What do you do? So they decide to cast lots to figure out who's responsible for this storm. And so they cast lots, and the lots fall on Jonah. And so they begin asking him questions. What do you do? What's happening? And he had already told them that he was running from the Lord. And so they said, you know what? Pray out to your God. What do we need to do to stop this storm? And the craziest thing about it is that Jonah knew it was his fault. And he looked at them and he said, you know what? You're going to have to throw me out to the sea. We all remember Jonah being thrown into the sea, but we don't remember how. Jonah knew and he recognized, you know what? This storm is happening because of me. So go ahead, throw me into the sea. And it even tells you in there that they didn't want to throw him into the sea. No. So they tried to get their way and make their way back to shore. And then that couldn't happen. The storm continued to go and they couldn't make it back to the shore. And the craziest thing happened after that. They all looked and they began to pray to Jonah's God. And they say, Lord, please don't penalize us for killing him and throwing him out to die. Not to their gods. They prayed to Jonah's God and said, please, this man is telling us that he's the reason, and we believe him that he's the reason. We're going to throw him off, but please don't persecute us for throwing him off. And so they throw him off in the sea, and immediately the storm died down. And it was after that, it tells you at the end of chapter 1 that they begin to submit themselves to Jonah's God. The interesting part about that is Jonah was trying to hide away from his calling. He was running away from what God had told him to do. And in the midst of that, God still utilized that as an opportunity to bring others to him. Through our Bible study, we talked a lot about walking in your purpose and what happens when you're not walking in your purpose and how it impacts other people around us. There are so many things that God has called you to do that you're not walking in. And because you're not walking in it, other people are impacted because you're not walking in it. Just like with Jonah. Jonah jumped aboard a ship and it caused a storm to everybody around him because he was running away from God. So him not walking in his calling caused an impact to everybody aboard the ship. What sort of impact are you causing to your family, to your loved one, to your spouse, to your children, because you're not walking in your calling? Your ship's been rocking the entire time and you've been trying to figure out why. And maybe it's because you haven't been walking in your calling. Maybe it's time for you to self-reflect and say, you know what, God? It's me. You know what, family? I apologize. It's me. I haven't been walking in what God has called me to do. He wanted me to go over here and I decided to be hard-headed and go and do something else. And now it's caused a storm to this family, to this household, to this foundation. It's me. It was an amazing Bible study, and we get an opportunity to hear from Pastor Gregory Hind again in one of our upcoming Bible studies. So stay tuned for that message. self-reflect. Notice the things around you. And if God has given you something to do, don't make excuses on why you couldn't do it. Jonah had his reasons and excuses. But see, God can see all things. And you can't give God excuses. If God is calling you and asking you to do something, be obedient. Be obedient, because there's a reason why God is calling you to do what He's called you to do. See, some of us are meant to be the business starters. We talked about this during Bible study as well, that some of us are called to be business starters, and you're looking at your spouse and saying, well, man, we should be equally doing this. Some people are business starters and some people are just managers. So maybe you're the creative one. Maybe you're the one to get the business started. Maybe your spouse is not the one to get the business started, but maybe they're a great manager. So until you get the business started and until you help to get that foundation going, there's nothing for them to manage. So now they can't walk in their calling and purpose because you haven't started the part that you were supposed to start by getting it started. And I'm not just talking about a physical business that makes money. I'm talking about the spiritual business of your household. Thank you again for tuning in. I'm the Professor, aka Logical Paradox GRP, and we'll catch you at the next breakthrough.